I wrestled Amazonian women in the Amazon. I raced water buffaloes in Indonesia. I done stick fighting in the Philippines. I done, mountain running in the Chihuahuan hills of Mexico. Do you want to go to the championship? So I was like, okay. And I think that was my journey that for the whole time was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a go. And so I entered the championships and won after a 10-year break. A 10-year break from the boxing ring, a hip replacement, 3 babies later. I decided I'm going to step in and have this one last fight because I wanted to connect with what made me feel strong again.
Welcome to A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up, the podcast. Today we have the really interesting story from Lesley Sackey. So Lesley is a national boxing champion. She was part of the first ever 2012 female UK Olympic selection. She is an early stage tech founder and a women's boxing pioneer, and focusing on helping women survive and thrive after domestic violence. Lesley, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So I'm going to jump straight in and ask you about your journey into adulthood. So tell us a little bit about kind of your growing up and your journey into adulthood.
Okay, so I am Irish Ghanaian. So I definitely see where my fighting spirit comes from. Both sides, warrior spirit cultures. And I actually grew up not liking sports. I hated sports at school. I wasn't into sports at all. Always had a note to avoid it. And so I wasn't very active, but I was creative and I loved theatre. And I actually ended up going to the Brit School, where I focused on theatre. And then I moved my journey into music and management and working, with events. And then I went on to do a degree, which was a business degree, but was focused on music marketing and management. I've traveled and had a semester at the University of Miami. And I feel like I've always wanted to do what I wanted, whatever that is. So if at the time I want to feel like I want to act, or I want to, go to the Brit School, that's what I want to do. If I want to focus on, music marketing and business and have, travel, so that's what I wanted to do. And so my journey was very much about exploration and trying different things. And then I got into boxing around my early 20s, and I didn't like the idea of going to the gym. So I thought, I wanted to do something different. And a family friend suggested the local boxing gym. They done keep fit classes. So I said, I'll give it a go. And I had one session and I absolutely died. I thought, who does this? This is exhausting. It was just, honestly, I was just blown away by the level of exhaustion. But the special and magical thing about boxing is it definitely plants the seed, and it definitely, keeps you on your toes, so to speak. And I wanted to do more. I felt good, exhausted, but good. And I felt like I was learning all the time, something different. And so that's what really appealed to me. And then from there, my journey kind of snowballed, and, I was going to the keep fit classes, and the coaches, this was an old, very well-known boxing gym in London, an old church building with, pictures of boxers on the wall, and then the big boxing ring. You walk in and it's like the smell of testosterone hits you. There were not many women. And so I had this coach called Mr. A, who's also from Ghana. And he really took me under his wing, and, it was that $1 Million Baby style story where he was very much a father figure. Yeah, $1 Million Baby without the unhappy ending.
Good.
But yeah. But he took me under his wing, and he really advocated for me and championed me and encouraged me. And so my journey from, wanting to just move and be fit began to take on a different path. And so he was like, why don't you train and be an amateur, which is competitive level boxing? And I was like, okay, fine. And I had my first fight and lost. And what I remember about my first fight was I was exhausted and that my shorts were too tight. And so that was like great advice to go into the next fight. But it was amazing because I had nothing to lose, and it was just very a huge achievement for me to step into the ring and just know what that feels like. And then,
Yeah.
he was like, Mr. A's, do you want to go to the championship? So I was like, okay. And I think that was my journey, that for the whole time was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a go. And so I entered the championships and won. So I became British champion, amateur boxing champion. And then I got selected. I was now on the England radar. So I got selected to try out for England's boxing and
Yeah.
then in turn GB. And then that's when I was working in music and marketing, and that's late nights, partying, networking, the opposite of boxing. And I made a decision where I wanted to choose boxing. I said, I'm going to give myself 12 months to really focus. We were waiting to see if they would allow female boxing in the 2012
Hmm.
Olympics. And so I thought, I'm going to give myself 12 months to really focus. And I gave up my job, and that's what I done. And I focused on that. And within a few months, I was doing a TV program for the BBC called Last Woman Standing. And that was basically where they took 5 female athletes from different disciplines and sports to live and train with different tribes all over the world and compete against each
Wow.
other, which was the most insane experience. I wrestled Amazonian women in the Amazon. I raced water buffaloes in Indonesia. I done stick fighting in the Philippines. I done, mountain running in the Chihuahuan hills of Mexico. But most importantly, what it taught me from that journey was that I had this mindset. I didn't know what I was good at physically
Mm.
other than boxing at that point. I wasn't into sports at school. So I felt like, oh, boxing's really given me the confidence to feel like I'm unstoppable, I'm powerful. And so it really helped me tune into that, along with the mindset that came with that. So, my journey into adulthood is very much a case of, trial. If I want to try something, I'm going to try it, and all things are possible, which I guess is testament to my journey, because if I can do it, certainly I was of the mindset, well, anyone can, because I was definitely not into sports, and suddenly here I am, and then winning a gold medal at the European Championship. So it was, yeah, I think it's just my journey into adulthood was always trying. I think also when I reflect, as a child, I was quite entrepreneurial. This was, it's only the last few years I've really reflected and thought, I've always worked from like the age of 14. I've always wanted to, do things and work. And so I definitely think I had a good, strong work ethic, but I was entrepreneurial from my first business was in primary school, where I was selling friendship bands. And it was a great business. We called it strings. And we make these friendship bands out of strings, and whatever money we'd get, I would then buy the threads to make more. And so it was, very early on. And then in my teenage years, I remember selling, or not teenage years, when I was a bit younger, selling, free newspapers to people where we were living on their way home from work, or walking dogs, or there was always something I was doing, or when it was hot, um, selling water bottles in traffic jams. And I was always very entrepreneurial, so I think my journey was always going to lead me to doing something that required me um founding my own business eventually.
Wow. I think clearly then the discipline from the boxing as well, alongside that like real entrepreneurial kind of principle that you've had all your life. How did you go from competing to kind of setting up Fight Forward and Pillow and what you're doing next from a tech perspective?
Yeah, so I dedicate this moment in time for this newly acquired dream, which was to go to the Olympics. And so they announced that there would be 3 weight categories in female boxing for the first time. And so my journey ended because I didn't fit in between. I kind of fit in between those weight categories.
Um,
And so there were already people at that weight. So there was nowhere for me to go. So I think at that point as well, deep down, I was like, I'm ready to, this is 6 years where I've really given my all, and I've achieved beyond what I thought was possible, and so this is okay. But I knew that I wanted to stay in boxing, and I also understood there was something really powerful about me working with women, and I really saw how it, the transfer of confidence and how boxing can be a tool for that. So I wanted to set up a business that didn't compromise on the authenticity of boxing, which was around 10, no, maybe 15 years ago now, which was kind of boxing classes or, I wanted people to really learn the foundational stuff of boxing, authentic boxing without, in a female focused, friendly way. Because as I said, these gyms are not so friendly, and they can be, I grew up with boys, I have brothers, and I felt like I was okay to navigate that environment. However, I also can see how challenging it could be for a female to want to box, but also not deal with the rest of it
Yeah.
And so I set up the boxing boutique to create a space to train women authentic boxing. And then it didn't become a physical space. It was more about like working with women, and I was doing workshops and going into corporates, and really I'd learned that boxing is life. So for everything that I'd learned in the ring, there was a lesson outside of it. Whether you want to pick up a glove or not, there's definitely transferable knowledge, and I thought women could really benefit from knowing that. And so my journey was very much in those spaces. And then in terms of, that evolution, I had been in an abusive relationship for many years after my boxing career had ended, and I'd basically made an Olympic sport out of having children. So I had three girls in a very short space of time, three all under 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then so I was navigating this complex situation, and the chaos that ensues like post abuse, and just trying to feel, not even myself, but a version of, I felt like I was just in survival mode, and I wanted to thrive. And so I decided before my 40th birthday, I'm going to have one last fight. So after a 10-year break, a 10-year break from the boxing ring, a hip replacement, 3 babies later, I decided I'm going to step in and have this one last fight, because I wanted to connect with what made me feel strong again.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I wanted to show others what's possible who perhaps weren't in a position to fight back. So I set up this event. The original plan was to just box at my local gym where I'd started, sell a few tickets and donate that to the Women's Trust. And in true style, things just kind of snowballed, and I ended up putting on a whole all-female boxing show, the best of amateur boxing, with an amazing advocate and champion in the sport, Terry Kelly, who does a lot of work with women and girls boxing. And we put on this amazing show. I had my fight. I won, which was a great full circle moment, because it was the very first place I lost, and then I finished on the win. And it was powerful because my 3 daughters got to see me step into the ring. But more importantly, through that whole process, I realized it was about the journey. It wasn't so much about getting to the ring. It was about the journey of showing up for myself, connecting with my body, my voice. And so I thought, if I could share this process with other women who've been through something like that, how powerful could that be, and how amazing would it be for them? So Fight Forward was born, which was, is a social impact organization designed to use boxing as a tool to help heal survivors and improve their mental health. And so my journey moved through that, and working with these women. I set up 2 years ago in 2022, but it's really only the last year where I've been fully, as I'm closing out the boxing boutique, I'm been propelled into working in this space. And as I hear the experiences of survivors and what they've been through, I felt like there was an unmet need, which is there's a real focus post-crisis on survival and keeping you in this state of survival for a number of reasons. Perhaps, organizations are overwhelmed and under-resourced. I think society's judgment and stereotypes of what they think, women who've experienced abuse look like, also are limiting businesses and workspaces not having the language, the tools, or the awareness to support women. And so I felt like I have a solution to this problem, and I want to create a solution to this problem. And so Pillow was born, which is an aggregator platform that combines lots of these different needs and services to help not only move women from this place of survival, but on an upward trend to thriving. Because ultimately, when that happens, us women are amazing. We achieve great things, right? So when we have a little bit of resources, not even a lot, a little bit of resources and connection and community and support, we end up being huge contributors to society, which benefits everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that learning that there's a couple of things I've taken away loads, but the two big things are that the journey rather than the destination, like winning that fight was less about winning the fight than, getting all those women together and empowering them. Although I'm sure winning the fight felt really good. And the fact that you can take learns from kind of training and boxing, back out into the rest of your life. And I think turning something that can be seen as quite a violent sport into something that is helping women to thrive post domestic abuse, I think is also an amazing thing, which kind of gives them empowerment. Like you said, you felt really empowered. I think that's just phenomenal. So if I take back to your 18-year-old self, already a bit entrepreneurial, but, having been to the Brit school, off to university to do music, nothing to do with boxing. If she looked at you now, what would she recognize in you?
That, the ambition. She would recognize that I've always, like the achievement, I've always wanted to do well. And so that's transferable, and that anything I decide that I want to do, then it's a go. I think
I'm getting that impression, Lesley.
But I think where my challenge is deciding. I know that once I've kind of locked in and said, okay, this is it. But I think it's the getting to that point, which is the challenge for me, because ultimately I'm my toughest opponent. But once I've decided, actually, this is it, then I think that's it's locked in. That's the decision, right? Yeah.
So the ambition piece you'd clearly recognise. I'm guessing she probably wouldn't recognise the boxing side, given that you weren't into sport when you were younger. But what would she be absolutely blown away by if she looked at you now with your 3 daughters, running a business, starting a tech startup? What would she be blown away by?
I think everything you just said, as I'm kind of, as you're saying it, it's like I'm kind of looking back to my 18-year-old self, listening to you talking about me, and be like, whoa, 3 kids, a business or 2, and tech, boxing, I think she'd be like, wow, okay, great. I think, she'd be surprised, and also, okay,
So not surprised that you had the ambition to achieve, but just maybe the journey and the river that you went down to get to where you are.
Yeah, and also because we have, when we're younger, we definitely have I definitely had a kind of framework of what I think my life, or what I'd like my life to look like. And of course, we all know that
never bears any resemblance, does it?
Absolutely not. It's kind of how I feel about my birth plan, to be honest. I don't know but just going off on a tangent, but I had this having my first child, and they tell you to create this birth plan of what you think it's going to be, and I was like, I want this music, and then some snacks, these are my snacks, and then I want my baby handed to me, and and it was just such a shock, that and so like humbling as well, that you think you can have a really clear, or that you can try and plan for something, and actually the universe knows something
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. I'm a great believer in having a plan, but completely accepting that nothing will happen in that plan in the order that you've put it in. But it's
Yeah.
reassuring to have one to start with. I kind of feel like from a boxing training perspective, that must be really important as well. That kind of being able to I'm going to say duck and dive just because we're talking about boxing, but
Yeah.
being able to adjust
Bob
and
and weave.
maneuver.
Yeah,
Bob and weave, that's it.
yeah, bob and weave is, I think, and it's both because the beautiful synchronicity of it all is that you have to be able to adapt and also be open to receive um and to allow yourself to think all possibilities, which means that that gives you it puts you in a position that actually you're visionary, right?
Yeah,
So you're doing what seems impossible, and that's how, things get done. And then the other side of that is, of course, we need a framework and we need a plan, and that's, we have to work towards these actionable things that help us move towards that.
yeah,
And I think it's both. It's about straddling both. Ultimately, for me as personally as well, I definitely need a framework and a plan, and understanding through life and experience that things don't go to plan, and can we adapt? Absolutely. And
yeah.
I just happen to have a few more tools in my backpack now to
Mm,
navigate those changes.
yeah, amazing. So thinking about that journey that you've been on, um, what's out of all of the decisions you've had to make over the years, what was your best decision?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, I think you'd have to like divide it into professional and then personal. Oh, there's so many. I always want to say, I mean, my best decision was to box, to compete. I think that really set the foundation and the trajectory of my life.
Mm.
And good or bad, it really gave me some tools to navigate the hard and the great as well. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So I think definitely the decision to box has given me so much in terms of community and connection. And again, I say this without, it doesn't have to be just like boxers and athletes connecting, even just to speak to you here now and share the journey, that's a form of connection. And yes, so many things.
But just that first time of going, I'm going to go, and maybe the going back after the first time where you were like, oh my God,
Yeah,
this
I
was
think
so
that,
hard.
that that's phase one. And then the second one was when Mr. A says, "Oh, do you want to have a fight?" And so I think my decision to, okay then, and I lost
Mm,
and I was exhausted, and I've never since my whole life never known tiredness like it. I couldn't even stand up.
wow.
Um, and so my decision to go back in after that was just, yeah,
Yeah.
was admirable, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think back to that, you're clearly quite tenacious, you're clearly quite resilient. Um, I get the impression that you don't stay down long, if something beats you.
Absolutely. And again, the analogy or the boxing as life lesson is, there is that saying, okay, you get knocked down, you get back up. But actually, there are so many ways to recover and get back up. And
Hmm.
sometimes you do need to stay down for a minute and the recovery, and then you're ready to get up. Sometimes we get knocked down, we jump straight back up again, and we're still like wobbling and that's not the best decision. Sometimes, and I think that could definitely be like shown more. Resilience isn't just getting back up as soon as you've been knocked down. It's actually knowing when to get back up and give yourself a moment on the canvas, because that fucking hurt. Sorry, can I swear? But like,
Yeah,
and
that's fine.
yeah, yeah, that I need to stay on the canvas and I need to take a moment and I need to feel it, and then I can get up again.
I think that's really powerful because I think a lot of the time, especially I think as women, at work, at home, we constantly you get knocked down and you're like, right, I've got to keep going, I've got to get up. And actually learning to take a step back and take a bit of a breath,
Yeah,
lying on the canvas and just go, okay, that didn't work.
yeah.
before you stand back up again. I think it's a really powerful learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've only learned that by doing the opposite.
Yes, I think we all learn much more from our failures than we do our successes, don't we?
Absolutely.
Um, and talking about failure, obviously you had that first fight that you didn't win. Have you got any other kind of pivotal failure moments that you've had that have really kind of formed you and the approach that you take either in business or personally?
Think, I think when a relationship doesn't work out, I think often is when we look at it as failure.
Mm,
And I think especially when there's children involved, you know,
yeah,
again, this plan of what you think things should be or look like, and they don't turn out to be like that. So, I mean, for a while, I thought that felt like failure. Now I see that as, good decision making and self preservation,
mm,
and you know, I think failures are, are great because we learn from them. Um, but I definitely think it's interesting how, like, the narrative that we speak to ourselves
mm,
around failure, again, myself included. And so an example was in that relation, like feeling like it was failure, but actually being able to say, okay, of course I can see why that feels like that, but actually this is what it is, and this is the growth from that, and it was self-preservation, and
yeah,
just learning to talk to yourself kindly, even in the things that feel like failure, I guess, and then like learning from it. But that takes time also. So sometimes you just need a minute on the canvas, and then you can get up again and learn from those failures, right?
yeah. And I think it's very hard when you're in it to be able to think well and in a considered way, isn't it? And that's why we always look back and have learned. But in the moment, that's really hard because if you feel like it's a failure, it's then very hard to take that moment and pick yourself back up again and plow forward.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, failures, we need it.
Mm,
It's information. If we're doing well and winning at everything, then where's the growth or the fun and the
yeah,
messiness of it all,
yeah, yeah. And the messiness is where the memories come, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm sure you've been given lots of advice over the years. I know I have, both good and bad. Some of which I've taken, some of which I haven't. You obviously had a great trainer early on, who kind of, I'm sure, gave you great advice. Um, what is the best piece of advice that you've had, but that you chose to ignore?
That's a tricky one.
Mm,
It's a tricky one. I think I'm I'm a fan of intuition, right? So I always feel like even if the advice is telling me one thing, if I'm
mm,
saying actually I need to experience it myself, I like to have a relationship with the thing, right? So I understand, even if you're telling me, oh, this film was terrible, it's like I want to see it for myself to understand
yeah.
what, like, what that is. So uh, I think that's a tricky one. But what I will say is, yeah, I think it's like the best piece of advice is to obviously, from a personal point of view, especially from survivors, lots of people don't understand why people go back.
Mm,
So on average, it takes like 7 times for a
mm,
woman to leave their relationship. And during that process, they can be quite isolated, and friends and family cannot understand, for God's sake, like, why do you keep going back, or why do you keep
mm,
going back? And so I think, to bring context to your question, that I'm like, as an example of, you know, people giving you advice as to what to do in those situations and not taking it. Of course, it's great advice, but I definitely think you have to arrive at that
mm,
yourself. And again, if you didn't, and I urge anybody who's ever received good advice and they didn't take it, there's a reason for that,
mm,
and trust it. And regret. I'm not a fan of regret. I feel like, yeah, that if I didn't take your advice, then it was for a reason, and I trust that.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, as you say, especially in that environment, it takes a while to find the confidence to, walk away or to do something different. Um, and I think for me as well, around what you're saying about intuition, I think that's really important. And I think we don't trust our intuition as much as maybe we should sometimes. Someone said to me recently that there is a clear connection between your gut and your brain. And so when we have a gut feeling, there is more to it than a gut feeling. And actually, that's intuition, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I trust it. I trust it. I teach my kids about that now, that internal alarm. Like we're
Mm,
so powerful when we're so in tune as humans, and
mm,
we really are limitless, and I think we have to really tune into our own sense of internal power, because
yeah,
there's a reason for it. It serves us.
yeah. And I'm guessing a physicality of that is boxing, right?
Yeah, definitely. And also it's so interesting. I think any type of movement, whether even just like
Mm.
standing with your shoulders back and your head up, immediately
Let me
you're
sit
like,
up straight now.
yeah. Even as myself, it's like, okay, even it's just a small shift of movement. Our bodies are tools, right?
Yeah.
So just to be able to shift and change your way of being in a split second can completely alter your
Mm,
mindset, your way of being, your feeling. And I think that's a really simple gem that we could all benefit from, but somehow we don't seem to have access to, or
yeah.
reminding. I think
Mm,
kids do it really well. As adults, we've lost that along the way.
yeah. No, I think you're probably right. I don't know how, but we've got to the last question, and it's been so interesting learning about your story and the journey that you've been through and the learns that you've had. Um, ask this of everybody, which is if the guide existed, if there was a guide to being a grown up that we could give to our younger selves, what would you put in it? So, what would you put in the beginner's guide?
Don't do it. Don't grow up. Don't do it. It's a
Stay child
trap.
forever.
Yeah. It's a trap. It's not that fun. I would say trust your intuition. That's the first and foremost. Like trust your intuition. Keep pouring into yourself. Trust that you are the best person for the job, whatever that is. When it comes to you, externally, internally, keep pouring into yourself and trust your intuition. You're great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure I can think of a better way to finish the podcast. Trust your intuition, and you're great. I think probably epitomizes everything. Lesley, thank you so much for your time today. I know the listeners are going to love listening to your story. I feel a number of them may go out and pick up boxing. I'm definitely tempted.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're running a program actually, the Fight Forward program, a 10-week program where we train women, not just survivors, to actually go on a journey and step into the ring. And
Wow.
so, yeah, we're currently looking for corporate sponsors and brand partnerships to support the program and be a part of something really amazing. The last one was, we're actually going to be we were covered by Channel 4, BBC, going to release a piece that they've done next week actually,
Brilliant.
on what we've been doing as well. So definitely stay tuned, and if you want to support, like, follow us on the socials.
Sounds amazing. We'll put all of the links to that in the show notes for the podcast. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you very much for spending some time with us today and telling us your story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up. If you enjoyed it, please like, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If there's someone who inspires you that you'd like me to interview, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram and TikTok. In the meantime, enjoy being a grown-up.